My name is Anna Wells, and this is the story of how I learned that sometimes family can be your greatest enemy, especially when it comes to business. For a decade, I poured my heart and soul into our family's small tech company, building it from a struggling startup to a $100 million enterprise. But with success came jealousy, even from those who should have been celebrating my achievements. I'll never forget the beginning, when our family business was just a tiny computer repair shop in a nondescript strip mall. It was my father's pride and joy, despite barely making enough to support us. My sister, Kate, was always his favorite. She had perfect grades and attended an Ivy League business school. I, on the other hand, was the quiet one, staying home to help Dad while working towards my computer science degree at a local college. "Anna, you're wasting your potential," Kate would say when she visited home. "You should be aiming higher." But I saw something in our little shop that no one else seemed to, the potential to grow. While Kate studied business theory, I was learning real-world programming, spotting market gaps others missed. In my final year of college, I developed our first proprietary software. It wasn't groundbreaking, just a simple tool for small businesses to manage their inventory, but it was effective, affordable, and easy to use. At first, Dad was skeptical, but when local businesses started buying licenses, he finally acknowledged my vision. "Maybe you're onto something, kid," he said, showing a glimpse of pride. It was a moment that meant everything to me. If only I knew it would be as fleeting as morning dew. The business grew steadily under my leadership. I worked tirelessly 14-hour days, 7 days a week climbing the corporate ladder, while transforming our little repair shop into a software development company. Our client base expanded from small local businesses to national corporations. Kate, meanwhile, had secured a prestigious consulting job in New York. She seemed to have it all, but I was driven by a vision and a need to prove myself to my family. 5 years into our transformation, we hit our first million in annual revenue. That's when Kate suddenly became interested in the family business again. She quit her job and moved back home. "I think it's time I take my rightful place in the company," she announced one evening. "With my business expertise, we can really take this to the next level," Dad beamed. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. We could really use your skills around here." I sat there stunned as the company I had worked so hard to build was now being handed over to Kate. But I swallowed my objections and played along. She was made co-CEO despite having no experience in our industry. I stayed focused on product development and operations, while Kate took charge of marketing and investor relations. The next 5 years were a contrast. While I continued to develop new software solutions and maintain client relationships, Kate worked to build a public image for herself. She gave interviews about being a woman in tech, accepted awards for entrepreneurship, and took credit for the innovations that my team and I had created. Our revenue continued to climb, reaching $100 million annually, but so did the tension between us. Kate started excluding me from key meetings, making decisions without consulting me, and gradually sidelining me in my own company. Then came Dad's 60th birthday party, the day everything changed. It was Kate's idea, of course. She rented out the grand ballroom at the city's fanciest hotel, inviting all our business associates. It was more of a networking event than a celebration, but that was Kate's style. Everything had a purpose. I arrived early to help with the preparations, wearing a simple black dress, which Kate immediately criticized. "Couldn't you have made more of an effort?" she hissed. "These are important people." I ignored her comment and focused on greeting guests. The room quickly filled with clients, business partners, and family friends. While Kate worked the room like a politician, I stayed in the background, making sure everything ran smoothly. During dinner, Kate clinked her glass and stood to give a speech. I expected the usual, a heartfelt tribute to Dad, some fond memories. Instead, she made an announcement that would shatter our family forever. "As we celebrate Dad's 60th birthday," Kate began, her voice carrying across the room, "I think it's time to announce some changes at Wells Technologies." My heart stopped. What changes? "The board has agreed that the company needs unified leadership to move forward." My mind raced. What board? "For too long, we've been held back by outdated thinking and resistance to change," Kate continued, her eyes locking with mine. "That's why, effective immediately, I will be taking over as sole CEO. It's time for certain elements of the company to step aside." The room erupted in murmurs. I sat frozen, unable to process what was happening. The company I had built was being handed to Kate, as if all my hard work had meant nothing. As Lily continued her character assassination disguised as a corporate announcement, her voice oozed with false sympathy. "Some people," she said, her tone dripping with condescension, "are better suited to technical roles rather than leadership. My sister Anna has been adequate in maintaining our legacy systems, but to compete in today's fast-moving market, we need vision. We need innovation. And frankly, Anna, you're just not cut out for this level of business." I stared at Dad, hoping, even praying that he would stand up for me. Instead, to my utter disbelief, he was nodding along with Lily's words, a proud, approving smile spreading across his face. Mom sat quietly at the table, her eyes downcast. Her hands trembled slightly as she nervously toyed with her glass. "The truth is," Lily continued, her voice rising, "you're worthless in today's business world, Anna. Your old-fashioned ideas and lack of proper business education have become a liability. It's time for you to step aside gracefully." The silence in the room was suffocating. Hundreds of eyes turned toward me, their gazes full of pity, scorn, and judgment. I could feel every ounce of my pride being torn down, every sacrifice I'd made, every ounce of effort I'd put into building this company, being stripped away in front of everyone I had ever known. It was as though I had become the villain in my own story. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. The sound reverberated through the ballroom like a gunshot, piercing the thick silence. Everyone expected a scene, perhaps a fit of rage or a tearful breakdown, but instead I simply picked up my purse, walked to Dad's table, and placed a small wrapped package in front of him. "Happy birthday, Dad," I said softly, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. Then, without another word, I walked out of the ballroom, my head held high. The whispers followed me, but I didn't flinch. That night, as I sat in my home office, surrounded by awards and patents that bore my name, I made a decision. Lily thought she had won, but she had forgotten one crucial detail, something that would turn her so-called moment of triumph into the biggest mistake of her life. As I powered up my laptop and began typing, a small smile tugged at the corners of my lips. Tomorrow would be a day they would never forget. After all, there's more than one way to run a successful business, and I had learned more in 10 years than Lily had in all her fancy business classes. She thought she had outmaneuvered me, but she was about to learn a very painful lesson. The next morning dawned bright and clear. I arrived at the office early before anyone else and waited. At exactly 9 a.m., Lily strode through the front doors, Dad by her side, both wearing triumphant smiles that were about to be wiped clean from their faces. "Anna?" Lily's voice, full of surprise and irritation, sliced through the silence. "What are you doing here? I thought after last night you'd have the dignity to stay home." I smiled, remembering the email I had sent at 3 a.m. to every major client, partner, and employee of Wells Technologies. "Just tying up some loose ends, sister dear. But since you're here, I suppose we should talk about the company's future." "There's nothing to discuss," Dad interjected sharply, his voice resolute. "Lily's in charge now. The board has already approved it." "The board?" I said, pulling out my tablet with a steady hand. "Let's talk about that. You see, while Lily was busy planning parties and giving interviews, I was actually building this company. There are a few things you both seem to have forgotten." I pulled up a document on the conference room's main screen. "First, let me remind you that I own 51% of Wells Technologies shares. When we incorporated 10 years ago, Dad gave Lily and me equal shares of 25% each, keeping 50% for himself. But 3 years ago, when we needed capital for expansion, Dad sold me 26% of the shares. Remember that day, Dad? You were too busy attending Lily's awards ceremony to handle the negotiations, so you signed the papers without even reading them carefully." The color drained from their faces. Lily's perfectly manicured hands gripped the edge of the conference table. "That's impossible," she whispered, her voice faltering. "Dad would never," I continued, showing more documents on the screen. "And that's not all. The core software that generates 80% of our revenue isn't owned by Wells Technologies. It's owned by my separate company, Innovate Solutions LLC. Wells Technologies only holds a licensing agreement which expires," I checked my watch, "about 10 minutes ago." Dad collapsed into his chair, the realization hitting him like a freight train. "The renewal papers, the ones you asked me to sign last week? The ones you were too busy to read because you were helping Lily plan the party?" I nodded. "Yes, those papers. I decided not to submit them." Lily's face twisted in fury. You underhanded little, careful sister. I cut her off, my tone icy. You might want to hear the rest before you finish that sentence. While you were busy announcing my supposed graceful exit last night, I was sending emails to our clients. You see, most of our major clients have personal loyalty clauses in their contracts with Wells Technologies because of me, my expertise, and my track record. Last night, I informed them of the leadership changes and my departure. I pulled up my email and showed them dozens of responses that had already arrived. Would you like to know how many have already triggered their contract termination clauses, or how many of our top developers who, by the way, are actually employed by Innovate Solutions have already accepted positions at my new venture? The room fell into stunned silence. Through the glass walls, we could see employees gathering, whispers spreading as they checked their emails. Lily's perfect composure cracked as she frantically checked her phone, her fingers trembling. "You can't do this," she stammered, her voice wavering. The company you tried to steal from me." "The company?" I finished for her. "The one you thought you could just take over because you have an MBA and Dad's approval? That company ceased to exist the moment you tried to steal my work." The moment Lily decided to humiliate me in front of everyone, I stood up, smoothing my dress. "Here are your options," I said calmly. Option 1. I walk away with my shares, my software, my clients, and my employees. NextGen Technologies becomes an empty shell, and you can explain to all those important people you invited last night why the company's value dropped to zero overnight. Dad's face had aged 10 years in the last 10 minutes. Option 2? He asked weakly. Option 2, I said. You both resign. I take full control of NextGen Technologies. You keep your shares as silent partners, receiving dividends but having no say in operations. Lily gets a generous severance package and glowing references for her next job somewhere far away from here. Lily's face had turned a furious shade of red. "You planned this all along, didn't you?" she spat. "You've been waiting for the right moment to stab us in the back." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "No, Lily. I spent 10 years trying to be a good daughter and sister while you both took me for granted. I built this company from the ground up while you collected accolades for my work. I only planned this," I said, checking my watch. "About 2 hours ago, after you called me worthless in front of everyone we know." My phone buzzed. Another client termination notice. Time was running out. "What's it going to be?" I asked, my voice steady. The next hour was a blur of paperwork and lawyers. By noon, I sat alone in what was now my office, looking out over the city. The company I had built was truly mine now, but the victory felt hollow. Family relationships lay in ruins around me, trust shattered like dropped crystal. Mom came to see me that evening, her eyes red from crying. "Did it have to end this way?" she asked softly. "They gave me no choice," I replied, my voice gentle but firm. "They would have taken everything I built and discarded me without a second thought." She nodded slowly, understanding but sad. "What happens now?" I showed her the plans I had already drawn up, expansions, new product lines, innovations I had been holding back. Now I build something even bigger. But this time I do it without having to carry people who see me as worthless. Over the next year, NextGen Technologies, under my sole leadership, tripled in value. Lily found a job at a startup in Silicon Valley, humbled but hopefully wiser. Dad retired, finally understanding that his golden child had nearly destroyed his legacy. We see each other at family gatherings, maintaining a polite distance, the wounds still there, never fully healed. Sometimes, late at night, I look at old family photos and feel a twinge of sadness for what we lost. But then I remember that night at the birthday party, the look of disdain on Lily's face, the way Dad nodded along with her cruel words. In business and in family, respect is earned, not given. They learned that lesson too late. As for me, I learned that sometimes the quiet ones, the ones dismissed as worthless, are the ones you should watch out for. We're the ones who know how to build something from nothing and how to take it all back when others try to steal it. My story spread through business circles, a cautionary tale about underestimating the wrong person. These days, when I attend industry events, I often catch whispers. "That's Anna Wells, the one who..." They never finish the sentence, but they don't have to. My success speaks for itself. Last week, I received an invitation to speak at Lily's Business School's graduation ceremony. The topic? Hidden Strengths, the Power of Underestimated Leaders. I accepted the invitation with a small smile, already planning my speech. After all, I have quite a story to tell. The company continues to thrive under my leadership, but more importantly, I've found peace with my decisions. Sometimes the strongest message you can send is simply proving people wrong. And sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying others. It's about rising so high that they can't help but see their own mistakes. As I write this from my office overlooking the city, I'm reminded of something my mother once told me. Success is the best revenge, but wisdom is knowing when to stop seeking revenge and start seeking growth. She was right. I've moved past the need for revenge. These days, I focus on building something meaningful, something that will outlast all the petty jealousies and family dramas. I still keep that wrapped birthday present I never gave Dad, a photo album chronicling the company's journey from that tiny repair shop to what it is today. Maybe, someday, when the wounds have healed enough, I'll finally give it to him. Until then, it serves as a reminder that our greatest strengths often come from the very things others underestimate about us.